Thanks, Brianna. My name's Ken, and tonight I'd like to go over for you three aspects of South African business culture: personal space, nonverbal communication, and gift giving. Now, before I go into any of this, it's important to remember that South Africa, like the United States, is largely a melting pot of cultures. Individuals that you deal with may enjoy what you do, they may not like what you do. It all depends upon their context, their background, their expectations. The first point is personal space. South Africans, much like Americans, much like those in Europe, tend to prefer about an arm's length of personal space. This largely, though, depends upon relationships. Good friends may stand much closer together. People that aren't as close may stand arm's length or further. As relationships grow, though, in South Africa, a very big difference to what happens in America is that individuals begin to enact physical contact. They'll touch arms, hands, shoulders, things like that. In America, the best you can probably expect, particularly in a business setting, is handshakes and a pat on the back. So it's very important to remember that this is a sign of respect and friendship. Like I said before, though, it depends upon the culture and the relationship that you have with an individual. If an individual is not very fond of you, physical contact may never be initiated. It really comes down to the person and to the things that they like in their background. The next point I'd like to talk about is nonverbal communication. There are a few nonverbal cues that are universal across all cultures, such as anger or fear. An angry individual, a scared individual, is easily seen and understood by a person from another culture. Compared to their United States counterparts, though, South Africans tend to be more sensitive and more observant of nonverbal cues. Considering, though, that it's a melting pot of cultures, it's impossible to say what nonverbal cues apply to who. Across all of South Africa, though, there are a number of nonverbal cues that are generally understood. These are the ones to really watch out for. First, you never want to point at somebody. It seems greatly disrespectful. Unless you're trying to fight with somebody, do not point at them. Instead, use their chin, your chin. It's also important to not point at things. That's likewise seen as disrespectful but not challenging. If you're pointing at anything or anyone, use your chin. The second part is eye contact. In the United States, which is a very masculine country, we seem to really enjoy and expect eye contact, particularly strong eye contact. However, considering the apartheid history of South Africa, eye contact is seen as a challenge. So it's nice to look at somebody, it's kind to look at somebody, and to look them in the eyes, and it's expected and respected. But it's important to not do so for too long or too strongly, because that too is seen as a challenge. Third, never use your left hand for anything at all. If you're left-handed and you're writing someone's name, write it with your right hand. I won't go into the details as to why you should not use your left hand for anything, but it is imperative that in South Africa or any African country, you do not use your left hand for anything. Do not wave, do not greet, nothing. The third point I'd like to cover tonight is that of gift giving. Here in the United States, we get presents for our birthdays, we get presents for Christmas, we get presents for any holiday that we can make up. We're a gift-giving, gift-buying consumer society. In South Africa, that's a little bit different. The only birthdays that they really celebrate are the 21st and the 40th. On these two birthdays, friends and family get together, they pool resources, and they buy the individual a really nice gift. This doesn't happen every year. It happens twice in a lifetime. Some examples of gifts are flowers, particularly for women, chocolate, South African wine in particular go over very well, especially if you are not very familiar with the individual that you're giving a gift to. Finally, a final touch is that one can wrap their present, whatever it may be, to add a little extra personal touch to it. In the United States, we might get a wrapped present, and as soon as we get it, just tear it apart. In South Africa, they appreciate that a little bit more, and they remember the gesture. So those have been the 3 points that I'd like to talk about tonight. Before I hand this over to Mark, I'd like to remind you that this has been a very brief, a very general overview of what to expect from South African culture. So those have been the 3 points that I'd like to go over tonight. Before I hand this off to Mark, I'd like to remind you that this has been a very brief, very general overview of South African business culture. The people that you interact with will come from different backgrounds, different cultures. They'll be individuals, and you have to know them on an individual basis before you can really apply any of these points. Further, just by knowing somebody individually, you'll be able to apply these points in a much more effective way. So remember always that relationships in South Africa come first, and the rest will follow. Thank you, and I hand this off to Mark.
You did it.